Hello and welcome. Today we've got Greg Paul, and today we are going to be discussing how there is no deep state and how to live free by your own laws. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to our Telegram channels and to nicholasveniamin.com for my free email updates. And if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, I will leave the link below in the description for the full interview. Unless, of course, myself and Greg can choose our words wisely due to the insane censorship that's happening right now. Greg, thank you for joining me, sir. How are you and what have you been up to?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm great. Yeah, really happy to be here. Well, I've just been up to sharing knowledge of law and how to be free in the world, which has kind of overtaken my life since the whole, COVID madness began a couple of years ago. It's good times to be witnessing the, awakening of people through their own trials.
It is definitely happening. You know, people are waking up. They're asking questions. You know, the media can no longer uphold, the lies and the propaganda. And like people say, nothing can stop what's coming. And it's interesting to see this all unfold very slowly and very gradually. And yes, we are all very frustrated, but hey, we are going to do something about this. We are doing it now. And that's why I have you on the show, because you are doing something very humanitarian, something very productive. And what I like you to do is, if I could just sit back and listen to your short presentation of what you would like to share with the viewers today. How does that sound, Greg?
Yeah, great. So we called this this video "There Is No Deep State," right? Is that what yeah? So I guess that's what I'd like to go into a little bit today, because it's very easy. And really what we've all done is gotten tied up in a whole load of fictions and titles. And so we now give our power, we give power to this thing that we call the deep state. When actually there's no such thing as a deep state. There is only those of mankind on this planet, men and women, who may at times trespass upon each other. There is no legal infractions or other things. There's no licenses to do anything. These are all creations that we buy into or accept by our own agreement or tacit acceptance. And the key to being free from this is not to fight it or battle it. It is to recognize it for what it is. And then we see that there actually isn't a deep state. There is only those of mankind who at times manipulate the free will of others, or who trespass upon others of mankind by way of harm or force or loss or unlawful confinement. And it's when we are able to express what is actually happening in reality in a situation that we're then able to obtain remedy for a wrong that might be done. So this is what the entire legal society has essentially been trying to do for, since its inception, is to overlay its own language over the top of something so that we see things for what they're not. And all that's happened over recent years is the inversion of reality to a greater and greater extent, so that we start to live in this legal land where everything becomes acceptable, rather than seeing what is true, right, wrong in an absolute sense in law, in God's law, in the Creator's law, in the universal law, however you want to look at that. So we also said in the intro for this, how to live free in the world by your own laws without fighting, lying, or hiding from anyone ever again. That's exactly the answer to this. There is no one is going to come and save us. There's no one is going to come and save you from yourself and from your own fears. If you're sat waiting for Donald Trump to come and reclaim the day, or whatever the thing is, what is it that you're hoping he's going to save you from? really. It's not from something that's going on in the outside world. It's from your own emotions. It's from your own fear, or it's from your own terror, or your own grief, or your own something that you don't want to see or feel. And that's the same for each of us, especially when we're farming out our sovereignty, our responsibility to others, to make us feel safe. So the question is always, the only way that we're ever going to change anything in the world, in our lives at least, is when we start taking responsibility for our own safety. So that doesn't happen by continuing to seek remedy for people triggering our fear, or people triggering our emotions, or people upsetting us, or the things we don't like in the world. It happens when we start to look at ourselves and take action in the action that we know is in harmony with love and law, when we are willing to take a look at what's true. And then as we move and we take action in what is in harmony with love and law, using the tools that we can learn about the law to support that, then as we take that action, we confront the fears, we confront the other things, and we get to feel those and confront them and release them. And this is the only way to come to some kind of peace in our own life. It's the only way to become safe, is to face all of the things inside yourself that make you feel not safe. The only way to not feel powerless anymore, or to reclaim some sense of power or control or strength over your own life, is to face and die to your own powerlessness. And in order to do that, we have to take action and move towards where those fears are. So what we do with the Sovereign's Way is essentially share knowledge of what the actual law is. So the universal laws and principles. How do you bring remedy at the soul level, at the physical level, at every level in your life? Because when you start to look at the world in that way, and you say, all of this is just me, right? Everything I'm experiencing, at least, is my own experience, my own creation, or at least the way I perceive it is the creation of my own self, my own emotional injuries, the things that are looking for resolution. How do I bring remedy there? Now, at the levels of universal law, that's forgiveness, repentance. It's these kinds of like emotional processes we go through. But in the outside world, that is then not allowing others of mankind to trespass by way of harm or loss or other things upon us, whether when they are acting through some color of law or as an agent with a fictitious title or otherwise. So we found that the recipe to live free in this world is to do both of these things and hold them together and move very clearly so that we are willing to face and feel our own emotions. The actions we take are motivated by a desire to do loving things, not avoid our fears. But then we don't just like look at it as this internal job and get all spiritual and soft. We also say, no, brother, sister, who at times acts as some agent, I'm not willing to accept that you do your intention to trespass by way of harm, or I would consider your continued action in this matter to be a trespass by way of unlawful confinement, or whatever the situation may be, should you continue. And for us to deal with the reality of what's and confront the fears and the practicalities of the advancing so-called deep state. We have to see through the veil and then act. If that makes sense. Sorry, I think I've rambled on for long enough.
No, I think that's the point of you coming on. So thank you so much. So how does the financial stuff come into this? For an example, when we are being buried into fictitious English with the laws, and we are even unaware of what we're signing, what we're agreeing to, terms and conditions, and buried into virtual chains and slavery. How do we take that kind of power as well and exit that?
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit of my story. Maybe 11, 12 years ago, I woke up to these, well, maybe 13 years ago, woke up to seeing how the financial system really worked, how money came into creation, how my mortgage was fraudulent, so I perceived at the time. And so, being a man of conscience, I walked away from the business. I cancelled every direct debit and standing order. I even quit using money altogether. And for a year, not a pound crossed my palms. And so, the I was just leaving everything behind. And so that was mortgage and credit cards and everything. I was going to continue to work and serve doing what I did in free service and out of love for my brothers and sisters and just allow to receive whatever came back. I can see now that my actions at the time were, whilst they certainly sent me on a roller coaster of a journey that made me learn a lot and face a lot of things and learn a lot of the things that I can now share today, they were also very imbalanced. And I was running away from some things while I was facing a lot of fears. I was also running away from a lot of things, a lot of personal responsibility, because the fact of the matter is that I did make those agreements. And what I do see most people in the law and sovereignty circles doing or looking for is ways to not take responsibility for what they have themselves actually created in the world. That's not to say that you should pay an endless debt that where there was some kind of fraudulent concealment at the time. But if you use some debt relief remedy in order to wipe out that debt and to not look at the matter of personal responsibility that of the consequences of the actions that you took as a man or woman while you were also willfully unconscious and asleep. You know, we have all been that throughout our lives. If you don't look at that as well at the same time, then it's not going to lead you to a life of greater expansion and abundance and all of the things that we really know are true potential. I won't even say birthright because it's our potential. These are choices. In order for it to become our life, we have to make choices. We have to exercise our free will in loving ways. We're not entitled to things by virtue of the fact that we're here. We are, everything that we experience in our life is a consequence of our prior actions and choices. And we have to take responsibility for that before we can start to clear up the planetary mess. So yes, if a debt or something that you've been involved in the past was unlawful in its makeup, then you can certainly express your own law common to I in a manner that will clear that up and bring remedy for it. But it's for us to take responsibility for that and not to turn our backs on it.
So once we do take responsibility of that, we can stop agreeing, you know, once we understand on that level of fictitious English and we do become aware, we can stop giving those, you know, powers to that level of authority and we could steer it in a different way. So how about the soul level? When you speak about the laws of the soul, how can we use that in today's physicality to make a difference and to, you know, in humanity?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, 90% of what people, at least when they express to me, the things that they think are the wrongs that are being done to them by those of mankind who at times act as members of the deep state, are not actually wrongs or harms. They haven't actually, nothing's actually happened to them yet. They haven't, before, no physical harm has befallen them. No actual loss has been incurred. And actually, they just have an issue with the emotions that these people and their efforts are making them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a wrong in law. And the only way that you can, not really, not in the eyes of the actual law and universal law, that is not a wrong that you should be trying to get a remedy for. It's a call for and a reflection to show you where there is an emotion inside of you that's out of harmony with love and law, so that you can balance that and release it and clear it, and therefore see clearly to know which are the few things that are actual wrongs, are actual trespasses that are done by those of mankind. So how do we use those laws? We start being very honest in our own reflection with ourselves about what is actually happening and being done to us that we feel. So my challenge to everyone is, can you describe the harm or loss or wrong, however you feel, that you have actually, that's actually being done to you? Can you state that in terms that is an actual physical wrong that you could then go and explain and articulate in front of 12 other men and women, and explain to them how another man or woman has actually caused you some direct harm or loss? And can you do that? And would you, if you were sat in that jury of 12 other men and women, and someone came before you and they were pressing a claim for a trespass by way of harm, would you listen to what that would you listen to what that man or woman was saying, and would you uphold what they were requesting? Now, most of the time, people can't do that. And you can do this with your own families as well. Like, go and actually create your own mock juries and try and articulate yourself. What is true for you? What is what is true? Not just for you, what is actually true? And what can you explain and convince 12 other people to also be clearly what is true? What can you appeal to the conscience of to show that that is accurate? So the key to be free in the world ultimately is that for all of us to take responsibility for expressing our own law common to I, not common law, not someone else's common law, but the law which is common to I. And for that law to be upheld by others of mankind, it needs to be in harmony with the overarching principles of law that are provided by the Creator's law, the universal law, however you want to look at that, that are actually objectively right or wrong in truth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to challenge ourselves to be able to express ourselves in that way, and to then look and find look at the monsters under the bed that we're trying to avoid with all of the actions that we're normally taking in the world. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. So what is the main message today that you would like the viewers to take away with them today?
Well, I guess the main message would be that if you want to know how to play a game properly, if you want to know how to play Monopoly or chess or whatever, you would be a fool to try and sit down at the table and play that game with someone else who had played it before without reading the rule book first. Life is a little bit different. We seem to think that life is a little bit different, but it's not. It's the ultimate example of this. And most of us, we are happy, even now, as we're grown men and women, to bimble through life, not really concerned even with what the operating manual is for life. that when I recognized this myself, maybe 15, 20 years ago, it was became my sole focus and goal, was to figure out exactly what is the operating manual for life. How do I, for everything, how do I run this body, spirit, soul thing that I am, or that I have, this the soul that I am, and these bodies that I have use of while I'm here and incarnated? How do I master the use of those? And so I needed to know what the rule book was. No one ever gave me that. So I spent the last 15, 20 years figuring out what my closest interpretations, the constant refinement, of course, what that actual rule book is for life, how to bring forth remedy, which is all life ever really is how to clean up and bring balance to all levels of your existence, your being, and thereby to become ultimately free of anyone and everything who would seek to do any kind of harm or wrong or otherwise to you. So that would be my main message.
Okay. I believe that you're doing a Q&A, and also there's a program that people can get involved in so that they could learn more. How can they do that? And what is your plans to help humanity?
Well, so first of all, the plan to help humanity is one man and woman at a time. There is no group thing. I mean, we do have a big social network within our website, and certainly those of mankind who go through the course do meet with each other and connect and become a community. But this is a individual process. We don't all get together and 100 people write the same notices. 100 people get together and write their own expression of their law commentary, and they take action, and it's exponentially more powerful that way. So the plan is one man, one woman at a time. It's you and it's everyone. And this madness in the world continues until each one of us just comes and takes responsibility in that way and learns how to do that. And so, yeah, you mentioned a Q&A on the 25th of this month of May at 7 p.m. UK time, 11 Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing John and I, John Little is the man who I run the course with that we do. We're doing our first ever open Q&A. We have a system for Q&A sessions with the people that come through our group study experiences and go through the course, but we're opening that up to everyone, basically, to come along and actually just ask their questions. So we have this system whereby people put their questions in and then vote on each other's questions, so that in our groups of normally about 1,000 men and women, we answer the best questions in order of order of the importance of the entire group. So we're going to do the same here for a much more open and larger group. So it will be the questions that are most profound or most important to all the people that attend, but we will answer. And then we're also going to go through some of the keys that we discovered, the actual simple keys that we discovered along the way that really enabled us to get to a space where we can live free in the world and not be touched or pulled by the people, anyone, whether it be the advancing so-called deep state agenda, or whether it be our partners or mothers, fathers, children. How do we come to a state of balance in our life? So we're going to share a little bit about that on that Q&A as well. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, what are the questions that you've been asked that stood out for you, that that you've answered to, when you've been in a Q&A previously?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the big three that this tends to boil down to, people don't ask them in this way, but certainly we answer them in these kinds of sessions, because they end up really being the big three: is how do I keep 100% of the compensation for my own labor, without having to hide? Mm-hmm. And how do I maintain my separation or not be touched by those of mankind who do act as agents with fictitious titles, mm-hmm. without having to lie to anyone? a third one, I forget right now. But people come a lot of the time with other questions like, how do I travel across borders, and how do I travel across borders without wearing a mask? How do all of these kinds of things? What happens if this man or woman does this thing to me? And a lot of, because people's fears around mask wearing, or what happens if someone comes to my door with a needle and says they're going to, they want to force me and my kids? What do I do about that? So we get a lot of those kinds of questions, but those are oftentimes not actually the questions people really have. And so we have to deconstruct those questions to see the real intention and the desire there, what people are really after.
So which parameters did you use to come up with this remedy of answers to help people?
Which I don't quite understand the question.
Which how did you sort of decide which appropriate answers to give to the people that are questioning? How did you come up with the solution, with the remedy, if you like?
Well, the remedy is simple. So the remedy is remove controversy and bring forth remedy to every situation in life. Tell the truth, feel everything, and keep moving. Move, keep in motion. That's it. So that's the remedy. It's not like something, and that's not like a proprietary thing or something that Greg Paul says. That's just like a distillation of the factual way of how the law, the overarching law works. Is that if you want to live in harmony with it and clean up your imbalances in relation to it, that's how you do it. Mm-hmm. You tell the truth, and you feel everything that's confronted when you do tell the truth, and you keep taking action so that you keep confronting things, and so that you keep finding more stuff to discover what's true.
Absolutely.
That's
makes
just
sense.
A simple way to do it. What we then do, though, is 20 years of doing that helps you discover the nuances and the subtleties of where we might not understand where we get blocked and stuck around those kinds of things. I mean, one of the biggest places that we actually get stuck is that we actually believe we know the difference between right and wrong. And that we don't understand that actually a lot of the ideas that we have about what's right and wrong are based upon our own emotional injuries, or based upon projections of other people, or what we were taught or told. And so what I'm encouraging everyone to do is not to believe anything anymore. And recognize where you believe you don't know something and you believe something, just suspend it and start saying, I know or I don't know. And then that opens the potential for what is true to emerge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Greg Paul, it's been an absolute honor to have you sharing that with us. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish? And also, is there a link that people can click on to, have access to this Q&A that you're doing?
Yeah, there totally is. I'll drop it to you shortly, and you can put it in the description of this video. We do that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So we'll make sure the link's in the description, and come along and see, because the truth is so incredibly simple that all of these other solutions they're all complicated. I don't know if you've looked into the straw man stuff and common law and all of these different equity and trusts and all of these different ideas of reclaiming your straw man and collecting your birth bond and all of this other nonsense. It's all complicated. Mm-hmm. And the truth is not complicated. It is so incredibly simple that it can be very easily overlooked. And it's not necessarily easy to implement because it takes great courage, but it is simple. And when you put that into practice, it transforms your life quickly. So, Okay. If you're watching this, do click the link and come along and just see if we might not be able to to dispel some of the big myths and blocks that are holding you back from being able to simply move forward in the world in a free and open and more expansive way.
Well, Greg, thank you very much, and have a lovely day, and we'll speak very soon. God bless you for sharing that with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for inviting.